To present Alex Zananiri.
Cool. Can you guys hear me okay at the back? Yeah? Okay, right. So I'm going to be talking about empowerment through collaboration. I know it's kind of a bit of a buzzword, there's bingo in that title, but basically it's going to be like Helen's previous story in terms of this is my story. This is my story through how I didn't feel empowered in the workplace and I didn't realise I wasn't empowered, and also I didn't understand the value of collaboration. So this is kind of like my talk on how basically the two are intrinsically linked together. Okay? So just to give you a bit of a background, I started, like maybe many of you here, doing waterfall, and then we kind of progressed into doing Agile, let's say, and then into where I am now, which is New Voice Media, where the Agile process is quite mature. So I worked for an insurance company, and it was very, very difficult to change the process. It was very, very hard to make things go more agile, let's say. So what we did is we did this approach of agile. So what does that actually mean? Well, we look at the industry and we say in the Agile Manifesto, 2 of the 4 points are to look at individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Now, these are things where we really say collaboration is massively important in the agile space. So the Agile principles, 12 principles, we have 4. The business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. Projects need to be built around motivated individuals, giving them the environment and support they need to trust them and get the job done. The most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face communication. And the best architectures, requirements and designs emerge from self-organising teams. These things to me are kind of second-natured now, but it really wasn't when I was working in the insurance industry at the beginning. So, a quick show of hands. I'd like to see, do you guys feel empowered at work? Yeah? No? Not many? Okay. Well, that's not good, but it's kind of, that's where I was. So hopefully this talk will kind of speak to the rest of you. So, yeah, that's all the way away. As I mentioned, kind of this was really, those ideas, the concepts were just like a utopia, kind of an idyllic concept, which just really didn't mean anything, and I just didn't really understand it. Because people who listen to Rob's keynote, it needs to have the buy-in from the business. And being, I was a software tester for many years. I've only just become a Scrum Master / tester. At that level, we didn't really have the engagement and understanding from the management into telling us sort of how to feel empowered. So I put this slide up because when I mentioned Agile, what we did was we had stand-ups, check. We had sprint reviews, check. And we had retrospectives, check. Therefore, I have Agile, right? Yeah. So that's kind of where we were. So I wanted to just kind of highlight those ceremonies and talk about kind of the issues we found. So, stand-ups. We thought there was no value, they were too long, and they felt like a waste of time. So what, in reality, what did that look like? So for me, I was in a team where it was about 15, 20 plus people in a stand-up, and you get the guy next to you and he says, oh, I did this last year. You're like, all right. Okay, I did this 6 months ago, okay. I did this yesterday, this is what I'm doing today, and tomorrow I'm going to do that, and blah, 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 you know. And then the next person. And then like 15 people later, you're tired, you're no longer engaged, you're not interested. And what it does is it makes it feel like there's no point. Like, what's the point to the meeting? And we know or we should know, and this kind of things we should be learning about, is kind of what's the value of these collaborative sessions? What's the value of a stand-up? And what it comes down to also is that you need to feel able to say your point. You need to feel like when you're saying your point, you feel listened to. So we didn't just have that in stand-ups, we had that in our other ceremony, which is part of our Agile process. I've put here, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've put good, bad, sad, and actions. That's double negatives. It was more negative than good. And the reason for that was, again, we never really saw a retrospective for what it should be. And we didn't feel ever that it was safe. So, again, this kind of comes from the management culture. And if you have a culture of kind of fear, then it's very difficult to want to put your statement forward. And it's very difficult to feel that you might, well, you might get blamed. You might get blamed for what you're doing. So what we had was, actually in the beginning it was very, very good. We were doing retros and it was good. And it was a place where we could openly talk about our ideas and our successes and whatnot. But what happened is, we got management heard about this forum for us to discuss things, and they wanted to come along. They heard us saying negative things, but negative things to be constructive. So they heard us, and they were like, "Oh, I want to come to your retros. I want to come to your retrospectives. Find out what's going on," because they thought it was more like a gossip time where you could just speak to each other and just have a bit of a bitching match, as it were. So it no longer became a safe environment. You were no longer able to say what you felt. You're no longer empowered to feel like to get that continuous improvement, which is the point of the retro. And again, it comes down to the value of the retrospective. What is the value? What do we want from that retrospective? What's the collaborative purpose of that meeting? And also, we never had actions. We never ever had actions. And again, if you don't see the point and try and work better and continuously improve, well then, what's the point in the meeting? You may as well just go back to your desks. So, what a guy. Sprint reviews, okay. So they became a blame game. We were doing, in our Agile, we were doing Scrum. So we were doing commitment-based sprints, 2-week sprints, and we estimated, like we were all told to do. But what do we know about estimation? Well, it's an estimate. It's not necessarily going to be right, and that's okay if it's okay. And what I mean by that is, if you are expected to give an estimate and you're not held to it and you're not blamed by it or have it as used as any way to put pressure on you, then that's okay. You can just say, oh, I reckon it's probably going to take this long. But if you're saying something and the ultimate purpose is to make you feel bad, then you're not going to want to do estimating. You're going to be, what's the point? You know, you're going to put something on, make some arbitrary figure. It doesn't really work, again. So when we were in these sprint reviews at the end of the 2 weeks, what happened was it became a blame game. We would say, oh, we've done this, and this is the time when we're supposed to be celebrating our success. We're supposed to be saying, look, guys, this is what we've delivered. It was awesome. But actually, what happened was there was an opportunity for management to say, well, why didn't you do that? Never looking at the positives, always looking at the negatives. And there was also, came politics into it. So we would get sales guys or different stakeholders, and they would have their own internal battles. You know, they liked the other manager or they didn't like the other manager. And what ended up happening is our team was in there, but those guys would just be fighting with each other in our team sprint review. And it's just, what does that do to the team? It doesn't make you feel like engaged. It doesn't make you want to like participate. It doesn't give anything good at all. It's just negative. So, and also you never really got feedback. The feedback was always, well, well, there really wasn't any, to be honest. So what's the point? Again, what's the point? What's the value? What's the point of a sprint review? We're there to kind of talk about what we're doing, get the feedback, get the customers involved, get the stakeholders involved, sorry, and get everyone on board with what we're doing, and it validates our work, and we just didn't really have that. So, they're the kind of ceremonies that I talked about, and they were the ones that I said make Agile, right? But there are a lot more issues that we really need to talk about, and I hope these things you don't have in your companies, but maybe you do, and yeah, so let's just take a quick look. So isolated silos. So as a tester, I was in a test function, and we were completely separate from the rest of the business. So product owners were in one area, developers were in another, and then we were just isolated. And I don't really need to talk much more about that. I'm sure we all know that that is not a good thing. So it comes down to a mindset as well. When we're all managed and put into these areas, we weren't really understanding why these things are important to get people together. And because one of the things that we had was this idea that productivity only comes when we write code. When fingers are on keyboards, that is the only time we're productive. And again, hopefully I don't need to explain why that is not true. We also had an issue with respect, and one of the main things about being empowered is having the respect and feeling respected. I remember a developer, I walked over, and he had his headphones in. I was like, right, okay. So I walked over and I was going to say, oh, I think there's a bug in the system. I just wanted to double check with you. So he's there with his headphones on, I'm stood there, and I'm kind of trying to get his attention, and nothing, and doing it again, and nothing. But he knows I'm there. He's just being difficult. So I then tap him on the shoulder, and he takes one headphone out, looks at me, and just glares. Just absolutely glares at me. And I'm like, I said, I think there's a problem. I think there's a problem. And he said, well, there can't be a problem because I've got a degree at Oxford University. So what do you know about code? Yeah, and he made me feel this big. He made me feel that big. And it was so difficult to feel like I could ever approach him again. It was just, what kind of environment is that? I mean, that's not one we want to work in, right? I mean, that's just one of kind of fear. Should probably have the Donald Trump slide back up. But yeah, so I kind of alluded to it, but essentially this is the hierarchy. I don't know if you guys can see it back, but essentially it's product owner, one arrow, developer, and then, well, 5 arrows, then test. So it really, really felt like there was a food chain. The hierarchy was this, and we felt like down here. So, you know, it's not great for kind of feeling respected and feeling trusted and having that good collaborative feel that we want to kind of encourage. So, on a kind of personal level, one of the things we do is we try and learn, teach, repeat. This is a kind of catchphrase, this is like a trademark slogan for New Voice Media, but essentially what we're saying here is that we want to better ourselves and personal learn so that we ourselves are better, but not only just keep that to yourselves, actually tell everyone else about it. You know, read something, cool, let's you know, share it. But there was never that mindset, there was never that idea to do that kind of thing. So this kind of brings me on to the company-wide collaboration. So there was no Arch syncs, architecture syncs, or dev meetups, or test team knowledge shares. These are kind of things we have. And Scrum Master, we call it a hoedown, but essentially it's just a Scrum Master meeting where once we get together, we talk about things, we talk about our problems, we collaborate. So there was just none of that, and the management mindset was completely different. So what Rob alluded to in his keynote is all about what we should be doing as managers and trying to encourage people to be forward-thinking, and this really wasn't a thing that was going on, and as I mentioned, it was a blame culture. I talked about us as testers being in a silo, And I remember our CTO walked over to us and he said, right, bottleneck. He addressed the testers as bottleneck. And you know, how does that make you feel? Do you feel empowered when you go to work every day and you sit down and then the head guy comes up to you and says, he calls you the bottleneck, not Alex. I was like, I've got a name. So yeah, it's difficult, and what can you do really? But I will try and talk about this. So I've put a bit of C#. I'm a tester, so I'm learning, but hopefully this makes sense. But yeah, essentially, in terms of not just internally, but customer collaboration was almost non-existent. So basically, equal to after 6 months, we actually did some customer collaboration, which is great, but not really what we want to be doing in Agile, right? We want to be talking and we want to be doing this on a weekly basis or as frequent as possible, we know this. So one of the things that I remember, a massive company we did a bit of work for, and we gave it to them after 6 months, and they said, this is exactly what we asked for, but not what we want. And that, to me, I will never forget that. That was years ago, but I've never forgotten that. It's exactly what we asked for, but not what we want. And why is that? That's because we did not collaborate with our customers. We just took something, built it, and by the time we shipped it, it was just no longer relevant. So, does any of this sound familiar? Can I get a show of hands? Couple? Okay. Yeah. Well, about half and half. So, right, that's all the negativity. I'm going to leave that there. So now positivity. All right, let's be positive. So my road to empowerment. As I said, this is kind of my story. So this is very personal to me and how I've kind of progressed in software development. And basically, my road to empowerment was kind of when I met Rob. Might have been the first time you guys had an experience in today, but he for me, he changed my career. Absolutely changed my career. I went into an interview with him and I was just blown away by his passion and his desire to actually, you could tell that what he was preaching, he was actually doing. And that is very, very rare. So he encouraged individual empowerment in me and in everyone else, and that was just obvious, and it was fantastic. And to me, as I said, I was a tester, but I was a very kind of old school tester. So I was doing test cases and writing loads and loads and loads of test cases and not expecting to do too much and just, you know, like a code monkey, just write next, and, you know, that kind of thing. And what he kind of told me and said, what's the most valuable thing about testers is we should branch out from this, we should really make a movement and go forwards and kind of be like the T model. I don't know how many people know the T model, but essentially you're not just experienced in one thing, you then branch out. And you're good at, you develop your communication skills, you develop other skills that kind of help building the right product. You're no longer just sitting there being, you know, typing away at the keyboard. And he told me about the first test environment. He said the first test environment is when we talk to each other. It's before any code is written. We actually need to encourage best practice, and that is done by creating this first test environment through collaboration and empowering people to feel like they can talk to each other. So he talked again in the keynote about failure demand, but essentially he told me what failure demand was, and I didn't know what failure demand was, and that's the principle of failure in the system and working on failure rather than value demand. We should be working on the things that add value to our business. We shouldn't be working on things that we've written a bug in because we could have easily avoided that. We will get bugs, we know this, we're sensible, we understand there will be bugs. The level of bugs is important and the type of bugs. These things we should be able to mitigate, or at least try. And building in, trying to reduce failure demand is massively important in there. So, the new company, new ideas. So New Voice Media, how was that different for me? So the silos, they were removed. I sat with my team, and that was wonderful. My opinions were actually respected for once. I felt like what I was saying was, well, I thought it was sensible anyway, but other people thought it was sensible. Other people listened to me, and I felt like I can talk, and I felt like I wanted to talk. And that gave me a feeling of trust, and I built the trust, and I felt the trust, not only for me, but I trusted my team. And having that trust in the team makes you appreciate, it makes you respect, and it all kind of links back together. So the management attitude, as you kind of sort of seen from Rob, that kind of attitude is just so far removed from the previous company. And seeing that is just an inspiration, and it makes you feel like, oh, that's cool, I'd love to do that, or it makes you motivated to maybe be a manager, maybe be that person that he is to me, that I could potentially be later on to someone else. And the idea of Kaizen, I'm not sure how many people know the idea of Kaizen, but essentially it's continuous improvement, and you try and look for areas in which you can improve, not just at a team level, but personally. How do you look to be better? How do you strive to be better and want to be better? And these are the kind of values that have been instilled to me by people like Rob and other people and Helen. And it's that desire to want to learn, but what's most important is that it's delivered to the community. So don't just sit there and learn. I mean, yeah, okay, you can do, but you know, if you find something awesome, and tell someone about it. And you know, let's do it together, let's work together, let's improve together. And then also what that does is it builds respect. So if you say something, you found something interesting and the developers think, oh, that's cool, then you get a bit more respect, and then there's more trust, and then it's kind of a self-evolving cycle of collaboration and respect and empowerment together. So one of the things that was massively important is having that common goal and having the thing that you need, the purpose. And when you have that vision, you have that goal, it is so much easier to feel engaged. But as I mentioned earlier, customer collaboration is vitally important. We need to build the right things. We have to build the right things. What are we doing? Why are we building this software? We're not building it because we want to. We're building it because we are building it for a company that wants to be successful. We want to be part of that success, but we're not doing it for ourselves. So, how do you think I felt when I moved to New Voice Media? Well, I've got an image. And what I think, it sums it up perfectly. I went through so many images, it was really difficult. And then I found this one, I was like, got it. Because not only is this guy happy, everyone else is happy. And that really, really kind of shows what I'm trying to say. And if everyone feels happy together, then it just works. Okay, but there are still some problems. We've still been learning. I joined New Voice Media in May in 2014. And this is how our team looks. So I don't know if you can see at the back, sorry, but essentially we had one product owner, one Scrum Master, 5 developers, and 2 testers. And at the time I thought, oh, this is great. My team was a lot smaller than my 15 or whatever before. But I thought that was amazing. And at the time, we were doing well, we understood what we were doing, we understood our process, and we were working together in great harmony, which was perfect. But what we did, retrospectively looking back, we were awful. We were shockingly bad. But we didn't know that at the time. So I just want to show you, we use Kanban. So I wanted to show you our Kanban board. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm kind of just going to break it down. So what we got here is what kind of like, just some stuff, and then like here's some stuff, and yeah. But essentially we've got to do, doing, ready to deploy to test, deployed to test, done, and some stuff. But when you were in the team, you knew everything. You understood everything that was going on, but still, it's messy, isn't it? It hasn't got the kind of, what do we say, 30-day, 60-day rule, where you come back to it and you're like, oh God, I have no idea what's going on here now. So how do we improve the collaboration, and how do we make that better? So I was thinking about this, and my team's changed massively. So when I put this together in August, the team looks very different. So sorry, we've got one product owner, we've got one Scrum Master tester, that's me, and 3 developers. Do you want to see our board now? That's real. That is honestly real. That is not for this presentation. That is our board now. And the difference is just huge. We've still got the kind of same columns that we talked about before. We haven't got like a to-do, but essentially we've got like an analysis column, we've got our 3 amigos column, our doing, our ready to deploy to test, our test environment accepted, and additional action required. And some retro stuff and some silly pictures. But essentially we've iterated on our process. And this is constantly evolving. This is just where we are this is what's taken in August. So, but what does that tell us? And that tells us really that team size can matter. And we didn't really appreciate this. So why does it matter? And how does it affect collaboration? And also, how does it affect you feeling empowered in that team size? Well, it's so much easier to work together when there's less people. It's so much easier to build those relationships, build those bonds, and create that kind of collaboration together. And we also had a common understanding. Because we were working on less, we understood and had the understanding of that one ticket. It was so much easier to look at that one ticket, and everyone knows what they're doing, and everyone feels like the purpose, everyone's purpose was getting that one thing across the board. And for us, it just worked. And like I said, with that one thing, we've limited WIP. You saw in the previous slide, how many things did we have in play? We had so many things in play. But at the time it felt right, but it really wasn't when we actually looked at it and drilled down. So we were able to limit our WIP. And essentially, it made us happy. And this is the point. When we feel happy, we feel engaged, and we feel like we can collaborate easier because we feel like we trust each other. It's that, as I was saying, that natural circle. So this is a process. I know it's quite a big slide, but I just wanted to just show you how one story goes through our system. And this is the process that we've created throughout the years I've been there for our team. Every team's very different, but for our team, this is what we do. So we have our story mapping. We then go into some kind of backlog refinement or grooming session. We then have our 3 amigos session. We dev pair, we dev test pair, and they kind of go back and forwards. We then have tester reviews, where the testers are then reviewing each other's tests and exploratory charters and those kind of things. And then also we have product owner reviews. I put that there because sometimes it comes at the end, but actually a lot of the time the product owner review is around sort of this area as well. So it kind of, it's not just the final thing. That's really important to add. It is not an end note. We do it as we go, as we flow. So, and also then we have our sprint review. So, is that normal? Do you guys have a process that's similar to this? Show of hands, yes? Wow, okay. Okay. So what this process gives us, it makes it incredibly difficult not to collaborate. You can't hide. Every single story goes through each checkpoint, and each checkpoint we feel empowered, and we feel like we can add value to each stage in the process. And we've built that up. We didn't have these things initially, and we've just built that over time, and it's just what works for us. So what I wanted to do is just drill into a couple of the processes and ceremonies that we have in a little bit more detail, just to talk about, again, where the empowerment comes in and how that feeds into the collaboration. So, the 3 amigos. How many people do 3 amigos? Again, not many. Okay, you might know it by another name, but essentially what it is the 3 amigos are the 3 roles. So a product owner, a developer, and a tester. So you've got the 3 kind of major roles, as it were, all together in a meeting just before you start the work, and it's kind of just in time. So that's important. It's just before you're about to start. So what does that mean, and what's the point? Well, the point is each person feels empowered to give their opinion. It's an opportunity for the tester, an opportunity for the developer, it's an opportunity for the product owner to really input why they're there and give the value of their role, and gives you that voice, which you may not always have, but I would say you always need. So, and again, it's that concept of the first test environment. It's really kind of making sure you have done as much as you can and collaborate as much as possible just before you actually write the code. Because when you write the code, that's when it's expensive. So, and also, you know, the more we do this kind of thing, the less ambiguous the code is, the less ambiguous the story is, and everyone gets that common goal and that common understanding. And these are the things that I'm really trying to say is important for us as individuals to be motivated and understand that we have our purpose and we build things together. So, 2 stormtroopers and an egg. Is there a better picture on the internet than that? I'm not sure. But what I'm trying to say here is, if one of the guys let go, then the egg will fall over. And I know dev pairing can be. How many developers have we got in here? Just show of hands. Any developers? Okay, quite a few. So this can be controversial. Not every developer likes pairing, right? But my argument would be, and has been, why don't you like pairing? And we need to understand why we don't like pairing. And actually, in my experience, as I can say, I can only speak for myself, in my experience, what it's been is that we haven't really seen the value as to why pairing is important. And what we get is a shared responsibility and this kind of continuous feedback, because you're constantly working, you're constantly collaborating. But what's happening is, no 2 developers are alike. I can't remember who put their hands up, but you guys are different, right? You're different people, you do different things, you've got different experiences. Well, that is so important when we create code, because when we basically can do things together and bring those 2 opinions and make them a whole and make them better and essentially make our product better. It's just another opportunity where we can collaborate and try and build the right thing and reduce that failure demand, as I mentioned earlier. So, I'm then going to talk about dev-test pairing. So, this is maybe even more controversial. And certainly, that guy I mentioned earlier with the headphones and that, the concept of me and him pairing together would just be, he would probably just walk out of the company. And good. But, what we really should encourage, and I don't know how many people do dev-test pairing, but it's so, I've seen the value, it's amazing, it's absolutely amazing. The amount of times we see defects just in that moment where a developer thinks it's dev done and about to chuck it over the wall. Have that sit down, have that tester there, have them talking to each other. And what actually happens is you get some amazing results. And I'm just going to say a couple of quotes. And this is a guy called Mark on my team. And I heard him say, "What would Alex do?" And I was like, whoa, a developer actually said, "What would Alex do?" And then how did that make me feel? It made me feel massive, absolutely amazing. I felt like I've actually got into the guy's brains, and it made me feel like I'm doing my job right. It made me feel important, like I'm respected. Another developer said, "Damn, I thought I would find this type of bug. I was trying to think like you," and absolute jackpot. It doesn't get better than that. It really doesn't for me. Like, from where I was, like doing test cases, just churning out test cases, to having this respect and having this kind of input earlier on in the process, it was just everything that I was told about, and it actually happened. So hearing those comments was validation for me. So it's important to talk about the main ceremonies, because we all do them hopefully in Agile, and if you guys are doing Agile, then we all do them, and this is how we do them here, and the change is just, well, it's another level. So there's actual positive engagement. People are there because they want to be there. People are there because they want to listen about the product. They want to know what's coming up. They actually have a vested interest in what we are doing. And building the relationship with the other departments, actually building them instead of breaking them down or feeling like, oh God, sales are coming today. Oh, that guy always shouts. But actually, what's been amazing is that we've built these relationships with the guys who configure the software, so like professional services, operations, those kind of guys. Having that relationship with them has helped us no end, because we find out ways about how people use a system that we never even dreamed of. we've learned so much from them when actually traditionally, this is a session where they're learning from us. So it's a great opportunity, and this is the value again of sprint review. So the importance, as I mentioned, is that goal. And when I said about you bringing one thing across the board, you're making it, and you're pulling it, and you're feeling it together. Well, when it's celebrated, it validates what we're doing. It makes us feel good, right? It makes us feel great. We're actually building what we want to build, and people are enjoying it. And that's why you come to work, and it should be some motivation. It's certainly motivation to me. But yeah, that's how sprint reviews have kind of changed. Retrospectives. So, like I said before with the Kaizen, but they were actually a safe place. So, having that safe place is fundamental, absolutely fundamental, where you can share the wins and the losses and actually feel like you can say these things openly. That's important. And actually, it's okay to lose, but what we should be doing is failing quickly and understanding why we're failing and then moving forwards and hopefully not making that mistake twice. So, it gives you that level of trust, and you can improve as a team together because you trust each other. And essentially I put down there, sorry, probably can't see that at the back, but it says have fun, massively important. So important to have fun in our workplace. We don't want to just work and just sit there and put our headphones in or just kind of do a job. We want to have fun, we want to make relationships, have great relationships with people and enjoy what we do, right? Otherwise, what was the point? So, one of the things that was mentioned was 5 whys, and this was in probably which slide it was, maybe Rob's. But basically, 5 whys, for those who don't do it, is we kind of ask the questions why, and we try and get to the root cause. And this is dangerous. This is a dangerous tool in the wrong hands, because what it can do is it can be used for blame. Because if you basically drill down and find out where the problem was, and then you blame that person, well then they're never going to want to kind of be involved in anything, and you've basically broken everything I've just previously talked about. You've destroyed their feeling of purpose, you've destroyed the trust and respect. You need to use this in a sensible and mature way. And what we do at New Voice Media is we kind of really try and get to the point and put maybe some process in to try and mitigate it going forwards. Because a lot of the time it's a process problem, it is not a person problem. And it's very, very, very important to use this correctly. So, this is my last slide. So I had loads of points and I changed the slide so many times, but I ended up coming with that because it just basically summed up everything I'm trying to say. Because the more empowered you feel, the more respected and trusted, and kind of when you feel like you've got a purpose and you're not blamed, and you feel like you can put your talk, your view forwards, well then that feeds into the collaborative processes. And the more processes you have, like our process is quite big, when you have that empowerment and you feel engaged, then those processes are actually, it's not time consuming. It doesn't feel like a burden. It doesn't feel, oh God, we've got to do this now, we've got to do that. It just flows. And when those two things are kind of together, then you can build the best software. And hopefully, and this is what I was saying before, and hopefully be happy. So, that's my presentation.